Hello, everybody. Good evening. We are here on the 7th of August, which is hard to believe, but we are going to have a board meeting. And would everyone please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We are all here for this meeting, and we will open with the good of the order. I'd like to just thank the PTA and Jen Hanston for an amazing reception in honor of the retirees and the folks who have received tenure this year. The PTA hosts this, and she manages to put together a speech about each person that is humorous and also insightful, and just a beautiful moment for every single person. It's wonderful to see everyone acknowledged as everyone deserves to be. Does anyone have anything else for the good of the order? All right. We also have the opportunity for the public to be heard. And if there are no tickets, anyone else have anything to be shared? Oh, I've also, just to go back to, I'd also like to thank members of the board. We had a retreat this past Friday, the board retreat, and that was a wonderful opportunity for us to meet and discuss our work together. And I feel like we had a productive and important time. So with that, since there's no one who, that the opportunity for the public to be heard, and then we can move to the superintendent's report.
Okay. So going right into it, I just was looking because the board was on and it was supposed to stay on and it turned off.
7.
Right at 7 o'clock.
Let's have a start.
So kind of want to go right through my updates. I let the board know this morning I'm taking off DEI language. I'll save that for another day as we move forward. But I want to just give a quick summer update. On August 16th and 17th, Jenny Auger, myself, and Jim, we're taking our show on the road, and we are going to the senior citizen luncheons both of those days, and we're doing a tax symposium basically for our senior citizens. It's to make sure that we make sure that there's no communication errors. They're clear on what their bill looks like, how to pay the bill, kind of how these work, equalization rates, any of the questions that they have. So we're going, Jim has worked on a presentation today, and we're going to go out so everybody can meet Jenny, our new tax person as well, and really just make sure that we hit the ground running with our senior citizens, because last year there was a lot of confusion. So we're trying to avoid that this year by doing so. Our bus patrol is scheduled to begin the process of switching our buses over to the program in late August. First, they have to come out and do an assessment. And then they're going to do, maybe, we believe this is going to happen right now, September to October will be the implementation. It takes about 5 hours to switch over a bus. So it's going to take a little bit of time. Then hopefully the cameras will be ready by November. We're getting clarification on when that 30-day window is of when it has to go. So we're looking at probably a rollout around December of how this is going to go. Rough estimate of where that is, but that could change. We just found that out today, Jim and I. So yep. So it could change. The secured vestibule, which is out in the middle school, is almost finished. Today we got the new doors. Can't really tell they're new. They look exactly like the old ones. The only difference is that, I know it's like, oh, we got new doors. Oh, they're the same. The only difference is those lock and they're push button and they're wired to the office. The screen itself and the window is still on back order. That should be coming in within the week, hopefully. Again, it's back orders, and it's kind of the way it's been for the past year. So we're hoping that's in by the end of the week. As soon as it's done, it will literally take a couple days and it'll be all set and fixed. So happy about that being finished. The auditorium has been upgraded. So we had a whole new system put in for long throw camera. So now you don't have to have that little tiny projector screen hooked up to tiny little microphones. There's a mounted long throw projector camera in the ceiling area, and it's hooked up to microphones that we have a push button, so it's super easy. Anyone can utilize it. So a community can come in, hook up their iPod, and they could actually play music right through there. The microphones automatically work, so there's less setup. Teachers can use it. So it makes the room a lot more usable for everybody. Oh, they don't. Sorry. Rachel said that no one uses iPods anymore. So I just dated myself. So there's a lot of things going on. And as you've seen, our tennis courts have been finally finished and the pickleball lines are in. So they are a light blue and, so they're less distracting, but they're done. And we've seen a lot of community members utilizing the facilities. August is what I like to call the long Sunday, but we're in really good shape, and it's thanks to our 12-month employees. From the building admin, administrative assistants, supervisors, maintenance, and custodians, they've done an amazing job, and they're great at what they do. Our facilities this year are ahead of schedule getting done, and they've done a lot of extra projects. Maybe it's because we haven't had construction, but there's a lot getting done, and it's credit to the 12-month employees there. So also, I want to kindly talk about branding a little bit, and you might have noticed this, and I didn't put that in. So there's a branding initiative going for the district, and it's our head of facilities doing a lot of the work. If you've noticed as you came in, there were new carpets in the high school. There was nice big purple VCSDs on the doors. They'll be on the middle school as well. But those things, they add a lot to this for the students and staff. I mean, students, everybody came in. Jess was like, "Oh my gosh, we got a new carpet." It's like, it's good to see that. Middle school is going to have the same thing. So our plan is to put a lot more of that going on into the district. So you'll see a lot more. And then in the elementary school, we're also doing transitions as well. They will not be as prominent because of the project, but we'll be making a lot of switches there. Recently, Restorative Justice Education came in and they met with administration and members of both the teacher and non-instructional unions. So to give some PD for the day about restorative practices. A target goal for the district has been the social and emotional health of staff and students while fostering a welcome school environment. Restorative practices can help do so on multiple levels, but before discussing it a little further, I do want to show a video that kind of talks about what restorative practices are, because a lot of people, they have misconceptions or misunderstandings of exactly what they are. So this video, it's about a minute. Yep, kind of share it.
Schools, workplaces, and communities, but humans are hardwired to that. Just as we need food, shelter, and clothing, they also need strong and meaningful relationships to thrive. With all this in mind, what is restorative practices? Restorative practices is an emerging social science that studies how to strengthen relationships between individuals and local communities. Practice and best are profound. In schools, students experience greater safety and sense of belonging, resulting in improved behavior, less bullying, and less violence. In workplaces, leaders encourage direct communication among staff and address conflict as arises. The result is higher performance, greater accountability, and effective collaboration. In criminal justice, new options allow victims and offenders, friends and family, to repair the emotional harm and time. Throughout our neighborhoods, restorative practices encourage us to forward more voice in the issues that matter most. In a nutshell, restorative practices is the science of relationships and people. Where individual daily interactions have a big impact on the world around you, in your jobs, through school, and throughout your community. How it really matters. This video was brought to you by the International Institute for Restorative Practices. To learn more,
Thanks, Jess. We're good. So the rest of the information I'm about to share is a credit to our professional development person, that is Adele Bovard from Restorative Justice Education. But so I'm taking it from her presentation and conversations that I've had with her. Many people hear restorative practices and focus on, and they only focus on student discipline and removes consequences. That's not true, right? There's more to restorative practices than the lack of discipline. And that's not really what happens. But I know a lot of people hear, oh, you're doing restorative practices, discipline goes away. As a district, we're not even focusing in on a lot of restorative practice when it comes to discipline, but that's a misconception and a misnomer that's out there. It's a balance between the two. So by having the balance, you still have consequences, but it allows the misbehaving student to deal with the harm they've caused and allows the individual students who were hurt to have a voice in healing. That's the big part with this. It's not just a discipline. We're not doing it. And Adele said something profound that I think we all took away from it. She said, if a student can't read, we teach them to read. If a student can't do math, we teach them to do math. But if a student can't behave, we need to teach them. We can't just discipline them. And that was something that I think we all took out of that, saying, oh, we can relate to that. So there's more than just discipline. It supports a positive school environment overall. Students and staff need to feel two things in order to be a part of a school community: a sense of belonging, seen, heard. If they are having a bad day, someone notices. Marginalized students must see that community is interested in them belonging, and then a sense of significance that can contribute. Their voice impacts the culture, evidence that adults are interested in cultivating a student voice. The state locally has shifted a lot of what they've done in schools, and it's now the MTSS. I'm sure people have heard of that, multi-tiered system of supports. So this goes right along with it. MTSS is a proactive, preventative framework that integrates data and instruction to maximize student achievement and supports student social, emotional, and behavioral needs. There's a tier 1 intervention. So tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. Tier 1 is for everybody. So tier 1 intervention is everybody's responsibility to do it. Tier 2, it's like a discipline issue. And then tier 3 is the most, needed interventions possible, very systematic. So we're only looking at tier 1 at the moment. So this isn't something we're going to jump into and do right away. It's going to be a very slow, methodic kind of learning process for the district. And MTSS has 5 pillars. So the 5 things that make up a multi-tiered system of supports: academics, mental health, positive behavior intervention supports, restorative practice, and social emotional learning. If you happen to notice, a lot of those things are all things that the board and district have been working on and focusing on over the past couple of years. Restorative practice is another tool and framework to be able to utilize on that path. That's all I have. I just want to kind of share that out. Again, really smooth and slow, but restorative practices, that's all I wanted to share. Any questions on that? All right. Oh, Trish?
I'm just kind of curious, like, what is the next step?
So, yep. And so I've asked all the participants of what they feel is the next steps to move forward with. I haven't spoken to the admin, so I spoke to Adele today. She had a few suggestions. She is a restorative practice person that we would utilize. It is going to be grant funded, and we're trying to figure out the best way to move forward. We're really thinking it's going to be based off the building leadership teams, as was suggested from a person at the meeting. But we can use restorative practices all the time. So restorative circles, at our cabinet meeting recently, we initiated utilizing it, and it was easy. It's just an opportunity for voices to be heard around the table. We're going to plan on using it as an icebreaker. So it's not like, oh, this is restorative practices. We're not even going to call it that. It's icebreakers. So really our focus is going to be on staff first, having those conversations, utilizing circles, modeling what circles looks like. And then the staff will work throughout the year, and they'll make sure they decide on how that is implemented, and then develop an implementation plan after they have better training. The only thing I'm hesitant to answer is where this is going to be. I have hesitations doing it in the elementary school right now because they're already doing such a heavy lift. I don't want to put another burden on top of it. So this might be a scaffolding approach where we do middle school, high school. And then, after that gets done, then we work into the elementary when they're in a better framework to do it. I want to speak to the admin before I understand exactly the route they want to take. You're welcome. So the next thing, I got one last one, I promise. And I had to write this all down, so I do apologize. And if I'm talking too fast, just tell me. So one thing that we don't do really well as we could is data, right? And what I mean by that is there is data when it comes to the untangible things. So social emotional learning, what does data look like on that? DEI, what does the data look like? Cyberbullying, bullying, perception, culture, community, all of those different things. We need a really solid way to be able to look at it. Last year, we had a conversation at the end of the year with unions, and it really came out that some of that data on the community survey from the Department of Education, The survey was it was hard to understand at times. There was miscommunication, misunderstanding. So we've looked into it. And again, Adele Bovard, who is from Restorative Justice Education, she's been in multiple schools across the area. She shared a platform with me that I wanted to start looking at. It was called Panorama. So I kind of want to talk about Panorama surveys a little bit. Panorama surveys launched in fall of 2014. Thousands of schools across the country utilize this service. The whole state of Rhode Island actually utilizes it. And each year they actually post up their data for everyone to see. So this is a survey, that is utilized across the nation, and it's got a platform that really is intuitive and allows you to look at your data. There are 3 surveys available that we would use, and this is going to be through grant funding. So again, not coming out of the general fund, and that's a positive thing. I always like to look at grants as a way of saying we can do this without impact, right? On taxpayer impact. So there's 3. It's student, staff, and community. Each survey is customizable and allows for targeting of specific data. So there's 19 specific target points that you can look at per survey. They recommend 4 to 7, right? And we have a target. We'll have a specialist who will help the district really implement it, do the PD on it, work with us, make sure that we are getting what we need out of like the respondents. So we really get to go through it. For students, it's developing programs such as a welcoming environment, diversity, equity, inclusion, social emotional learning, or creating structures of improvement yet lack valid, easy to utilize data. The platform allows for a comparison of like schools and communities as well, so we can see each one. So that being said, is we can take our data, we can type in our demographic, our socioeconomic status, our number of students, and it will separate all that other data and bring us to schools that are like us. So when we get a 55% on this or a 60%, we're saying, well, where do we stand in other schools? It actually, from all the thousands of schools that utilize it, allows us to look at that data in a different light. Again, it's a tool, right? And the tool is to be introspective and look what we're doing. This is a platform and tool that we can utilize to move us forward. Yep, no, it's perception data. I want to go through that.
So similar to the climate survey.
Yeah, it's very similar to climate survey. So the survey measures student perceptions of teaching and learning, culture and climate, student experience in the classroom and school, and it's designed to have effective teaching practices and more engaging learning environments. Now, before I go on with the other components of this, there's another tool that comes with this. It's called the playbook. The playbook will say all the tried and true practices that have been utilized for some of these things. So if you're seeing that you're falling below the mark and you aren't already doing things to make an improvement, it has specific tangible outcomes. So if it's teacher-led, if it's leader-led, if it's student-led, all of those have outcomes to be able to help and initiate change. So and that comes right along with the survey platform. For staff, it gathers teacher and staff perceptions of their professional well-being, capacity and efficacy around supporting academic, social, and emotional learning, professional learning opportunities, cultural competency and awareness, school climate and culture, relationships with colleagues, families, and school leadership. For community, the survey exists as a series of scales or groups of survey questions that work together to measure a single construct or topic, family engagement, school safety. We can customize that survey by selecting topics that we value most as a district, and those surveys are designed to deliver valuable information on families and guardians. So it's kind of what we were doing, just on a whole different level. And I know Rachel's going to ask this question, so I have the answer because she wants to know the validity of the survey and how it was developed. So the developed of the survey was actually a collaboration between Panorama Education and the Harvard Graduate School of Education. The student survey is grounded in advanced survey methodology and practice. So the research team followed a rigorous survey development process consisting of literature reviews, focus groups, feedback from experts around the country, and cognitive interviews with students and multiple rounds of piloting and refinement. The team developed an instrument based on modern principles of survey design. So again, it's focusing in on a very specific design to make sure that we get the most valid answers. Some of these include wording survey items as questions rather than statements, avoiding agree, disagree responses options that may introduce acquiescence bias, and instead of, I can't even say that word, I apologize, may introduce, thank you, bias, and instead of using verbally labeled responses, asking about one idea at a time rather than using double-barreled items, like how happy and engaged are you? Kind of things like that. using at least 5 response options to capture a wider range of perception and phrasing questions in positive language rather than using reverse scored or negative language, which the Department of Education survey did, which students tend to have trouble understanding. So it is going to move us forward a little bit more. And the goal is going to be get it out for a baseline in hopefully October. So we get a baseline survey of where we stand and then do it again in June to really see, did the efforts or things that we did do make any difference?
So I have 2 questions
Yes.
now that you just said that.
Yep.
But I'll ask sorry. The first one is that I appreciate the survey development information. That's fascinating. It addresses a lot of the challenges I see with surveys very often. And is there advice or standard procedures on how to administer the survey so
Yes.
kids are not just like, the faster I'm done, the faster I can.
So this is the best part about this, is that we actually get our own personal individual to help us with this. And it's not even just best practices for students. It's going to be best practices for adults, best practices for parents, families, and guardians. And they'll look at our responses rate, and then they'll give us ideas and suggestions on how to make it better. So we're not the survey people knowing exactly how to do things, but there are professionals. And so it should help us be able to get a better understanding of our community.
Okay, so the second question is, getting a baseline in October is one thing, but just the same way you referred to August as the long Sunday, I think June, the tendency of every person that I know
Yeah.
personally is that
Maybe May.
well, there's just a
Yep.
change in your mindset through the year,
Yep.
no matter what. So would it be possible to do it again in October, or is that the grant cycle?
So I have not worked out the specifics with the company as of yet. So this is something that we're trying to work through as quick as possible. But all these things take a little bit of time. The grant cycle is not the issue. It's working with the company to make sure that we do the specifics of how they want things done and making sure that we do it correct. So it could be May, it could be April. Like we've been doing Department of Justice in May. So it could be that time frame. I'm just using those benchmarks as kind of an idea of we're going to do in the beginning and at the end to be able to specifically look, are the things that we're trying to do in the district working? Are they not working? And if they're not working, what do we need to do to make them better? We do that, but we do it anecdotally right now. And so this at least is a platform that's used by other school districts across the nation and a whole state to be able to at least give us a basis to move forward with.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. You done?
Yeah, Tim also has a question. So you guys can decide who gets your.
I'm a results-oriented person. So I'd always start with the question, to what end? I'll even ask this regarding restorative justice or the restorative practices as well as elder birthday. To what end? What are we going to achieve as a result of this activity?
So hopefully lower discipline rates, higher student engagement, higher performing rates of all of our students across the board, including our student cohort groups. So our socioeconomic special education students. So it's been shown restorative practices, if they feel vested and included in a classroom, their rates go up.
So what I'll ask you to do at some point in time down the road, return to us these topics and give us a progress report.
So our plan is going to be,
as a result of us doing this stuff.
So our plan is going to be to analyze that data and share it internally for the initial one, share it with the board and understand it better, and then give an outcome at the end of the year.
That's what I'm getting.
Yep, absolutely.
The data is important, of course, as a benchmark starting point. But I want to know, what have we accomplished as a result of all of this activity?
Agreed. That's kind of the goal of doing these is we've done these things, but what are we actually doing? Is it actually working? And our data set can't be more than 20 or 25% of our community, right? If we're only getting 30% of the respondents of those specific categories, we're not getting all voices.
Just
So-
the other day, you might have said this. There's survey fatigue.
Yep.
Won't this contribute to?
No, because I said it knowing that we were going to do this survey. That's why I want to be very careful because I knew we were going to do this. Yes, Tricia.
With that in mind, are you still gonna do the national?
No, I don't think so. I think this can kind of go against it because if we're doing 2 surveys at the end of the year, that will be survey fatigue.
So you feel like the national one, a lot of schools, right?
Yep.
Even though we don't necessarily love how it's written. Like, how many places are gonna use this other one?
There's over 1,000, like there's thousands of schools and states that use this.
And when you say it's customizable, you mean, we can write our own questions, or we pick and choose?
So you can pick and choose the categories of what there are, and you can also add in your blank response questions. But they are going to help us write those. So we can have like a short answer response or add a question if we want to, but they want to make sure that as we're writing it, it kind of fits into the data that we're looking into.
So if you customize, how does that impact your ability to compare it to others?
It does. That's why they kind of are only one question if you customize it per category. And they filter that question out. So that would be very specific to our district. Like if you want to know a very specific target goal or target thing that doesn't involve the other school district and would be very Voorheesville centric, that's how you make that individual question. So let's say I'm very interested in electric school buses. Like that would be not on the data, but something you could add into it or something in those regards. You're welcome.
This is only a student survey or?
It's a student survey. There's a staff survey and there is a parent and guardian survey. So there's
Okay.
3 similar to what we've done already.
Okay, got it.
But it's all different groups of people, so nobody's getting multiple surveys, so it's.
Yeah. And we'll have to figure that out, how that one works.
And you feel it's exhaustive enough that you're not missing out by not doing the national?
I do, yes. Yeah, because they're very similar and they have the same topics. But I think this one can give us a lot more data out of it. And again, the national survey, there's really no way to interpret it, right? And that's the hard part is you can look at it. It's a perception data based off of the numbers that you get, but that's it. You don't know how another school that's similar to you is doing or what best practices look like, or is 65% actually good, right? You have no idea. But if you're doing it with a school that actually looks across the nation, gives you like schools, and you can say 65% isn't good, that's better than where we already are. So I think
Panorama doesn't do anything like say, if your data shows this.
Yep.
Then you may want to consider.
Yep. Yeah, they have something called a playbook.
Like,
Yep. So there's a lot of levels to this. Like they can be used for MTSS. It can be for social emotional screening. There's a lot more that you can add on for like tier 2 interventions or tier 3. This really focuses on that tier 1 level intervention of just everyone to give us that. And again, it's all perception data, but that's what that survey is based on.
And you said there's only like a little over 1,000 schools that are currently using it?
Thousands of schools. Yeah. So
I mean, do we know there's many that are, of the same size?
yeah. Yep. No, there are. So they were actually, when they were going through the demo, they were showing us different schools, how it works, what they're like. So take Rhode Island, the whole school, the whole state, all those schools similar in size. So they'll just take those percentages of whoever they have and then make them match us. And again, it's panorama, if you want to check it out.
Any other questions or? All right.
No. That's all I have.
Okay, Paige, it's not on the agenda, but if there, and it's also, school's not in
Yeah.
session. So I don't want to put you on the spot. Are you,
Yeah, I really don't have much to report because there's not much going on.
okay? Well, we will look forward to hearing from you in September and perhaps there'll be more to say as students are putting things in lockers and such. All right, well, thank you, Frank, very much. And thank you, Paige, for keeping us moving along. And with that, we go to the approval of minutes. We have minutes from a reorg meeting and also a regular meeting. They're good, okay. Would anyone like to move those or are there any thoughts or questions? Minutes. Anyone like to move them? Second? All in favor? Aye. And then action item 5.1 is the treasurer reports. And are there any questions or thoughts about those? All right. Anyone like to move them?
I'll move those.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. With that, we move to personnel items where many people are appointed, potentially. 5.2, all of it, all the way down to 5.2.15, including potentially a modified soccer coach for boys. if someone would like to move them, or if there are any thoughts or questions first. If not, anyone like to move them?
I'll move it.
Second? All in favor? Aye. All right. Thank you to all who are sharing the district in this way. And then 5.3 CSE recommendations. Any thoughts, questions? All right. Anyone like to move it? Second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. All right. And approving the, I think it's the distance learning classroom rental agreement. Any questions?
Yeah, where will that be placed?
We have the DL room that
105?
in the high school, so that's a distance learning classroom. We also have another room.
So what is it we're renting?
It's the ability to do DL. So like the WebEx platform.
Okay, so it's not a physical.
Correct.
Container.
Right. It's not physical. Right.
Yeah, I wasn't sure about that. Okay.
So, and because then it allows us to have the rebates and the money coming back and the aidability that goes along with it through NARIC.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Any questions? Other than that, all right. Anyone like to move it? Second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Approval of agreement for an ice hockey merger with Guilderland, Huntington, Shalmont, Scotia, Glenville, and Voorheesville. Any questions? I always like to ask what the school color, what the team color will be.
I don't know that answer.
Districts?
Yeah.
I believe,
All together, they're brown.
Yeah.
there we go. The Cleveland Browns can show me.
It's always a large amount of districts. It was
No, I didn't
yeah.
remember seeing all, like, yeah.
Yeah, it's a large
The
amount.
Exact same ones last year.
Yep.
Yeah.
And what's our participation like in that?
It runs. I mean, sometimes we have a couple, sometimes we have 4 or 5.
Cool.
Yeah. And we have some very strong players that have played.
That's awesome.
So
Transfers or,
foreign exchange student who was phenomenal.
Really cool.
Would anyone like to move it? If there are any more questions first? All right, second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. All right. Congratulations to the hockey team. And we have an e-policy update service and a policy update service, both through NISBA. I'm going to bundle those in a mini consent agenda. If there are no problems with that, are there any questions about this service? Are there any thoughts about this service? I would like to thank it for existing. Yes. Would anyone like to move it? Second?
I'll second.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. All right. CASDA membership. Everyone, questions? Thoughts? Move it. 5.8.
I'll move it.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, we're gonna move to old business, the audit committee, which has been chaired by RG and will continue to be chaired by RG.
Yes, we did not meet. Frank, Jim and I have an organizational meeting a week from today. And then we'll get ourselves organized, plan our agenda for the upcoming year.
Okay, we meet September.
I believe so.
Yeah.
That's the plan.
Excellent, looking forward to it.
Finalize those dates, but yes.
Okay. And curriculum committee has a new chair. And thank you, Tim, for your years of service in that role. Pass the gavel. Robin?
We have not met yet this summer. We do have a meeting scheduled for September 26th. In the meantime, with Lee and I are going to look at some items that we want to focus on for the year.
Thank you. And facilities, Rob, you remain chair.
We have also not yet met.
Okay. And policy, Trish, you've also remained chair. That's Trish. I was the only committee that stayed. Stayed the same. 2 years.
We have not met since next meeting is September 21st.
All right. Well, happy September meetings to the committees. All right, we have some new business, which if it passes, I believe I need everyone to sign something, so don't leave when the meeting concludes, if someone moves and votes to conclude the meeting at some point. 7.1, the approval of the resolution regarding the fund balance. Are there any questions about this one?
I would appreciate hearing from Jim because he always does an excellent explanation.
Okay. So, as you probably know by now, I'm extremely conservative until I have final-ish numbers. It turns out that the two numbers were reversed. We got over 28 million in revenue and only 27.75 in expense, whereas the previous estimate was the reverse. So that requires us to put a little more money away. Not a bad thing, but something that you have to deal with. So I suggested putting it into the retirement reserve for ERS because we know there's likely to be some volatility in the future as far as rates for retirement systems. So we better be prepared for it. So that's one of the significant changes I made. Another one is because we're not fully out of the realm of COVID and the potential consequences, I wanted to put the money back into the reserve for insurance to make sure that we have that available in case anything comes up. In addition, there was a slight increase in the amount going into the capital reserve to get us real close to that 4.5 number. We're at about 3.422 if this action is approved. So 78,000 at the end of next year, and we've capped out what we need for the current project. Those are the major changes. There is quite a bit of encumbrance money. It was like $239,000, but that's because we had some projects that were happening right in June, so they kind of carried over, but will be cleared out. So that's the big overview. If you have any specific questions, I'll be happy to.
Not a specific question. I think that since it's such a big number, the ERS reserve kind of jumped out at me. I mean, we increased the TRS reserve by roughly the same amount. It's just a lot of money sitting in both of those.
So interestingly, TRS is capped. So you're only allowed to put in 2% of the TRS qualified salaries from the prior year. That was approximately $10 million this past year. So we were only able to put 200,000 in there, but we're able to put a significant amount more in ERS. So if they didn't have that cap on the TRS, it'd be a lot easier and we would balance it out. But ERS is a place you can actually put money. So that was the difference on this.
Yeah, it's just kind of sticking with me just because it's such a large number and I know we have lots of other things we'd like to do. I appreciate the planning aspect and I know this all happened late, right? Because you're waiting for the final runs. So. Well,
what I can say about that is it's one of those reserves that you could move money out of fairly easily, which is what, you always try to put as much flexibility into the plan as possible. So if there is something like that we need a specific $250,000 next year for something, right, then we could pull it out.
Yeah, when I saw this, I was immediately thinking of the sinkholes at the elementary school.
Yeah.
And thinking of Kiwanis soccer and.
We actually, we did get an estimate on that. Was it 35,000?
Between 10 and 30,000.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and we do have, we've learned it well enough that to be ready for those things over the years with the deferred maintenance and all the other issues going on. So we know that we're going to be able to take care of that soon.
Okay.
Yeah,
So it can be pulled out and put back in the general fund?
So we have that 325,000 in the general fund for deferred maintenance.
No, they're talking about the reserve. Sorry, they're talking about the ERS reserve.
From the reserve. Yeah.
Oh, you could move money around between reserves, so we could move it into capital reserve or the reserve for repairs. So,
Right.
yeah.
But you can't, is there any reserve fund, I'm gonna put you on the spot, but I think just to answer some questions that I know I would have. Is there any specific reserves that can go from the reserve to the general fund, or are they from reserve to reserve?
In your budgeting process, you can put in a revenue that is from the reserve. So that would have to wait till next, for 24, 25. But that's what I'm saying about the flexibility is you can move between the reserve funds, but as part of the budget, you can use some of those reserve funds.
And the process to create another reserve, what is that process, Jim?
It depends on the reserve. They're all different processes. Some of them require the approval of the taxpayers, such as a new capital reserve or something like that. Some of them only require the board to set it up. So there's a whole, essentially 2-page summary that Quest Our Posters puts out every year that shows all the different pieces that you have to go through for these things. I can certainly share that during the audit committee.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yep.
This put us in anywhere near the 4% unrestricted fund balance limitation.
Well, that's why it's difficult to accomplish, because you have to have the 4%, and that's exactly where we're at, 4% for the unallocated fund.
Thank you, Jim.
Can there be reserves for things like professional development? Or like
Not
FLCDO?
specifically, no, but often you can use reserve funds to cover one budget line that will free up another budget line.
Understood. Okay. It's a chess game.
And then we had talked about, I know we'll probably get to it next month, but the school lunch profit and loss,
Mhm.
how we thought we would need to move money to cover the deficit.
Right.
We can do that within our general fund money or just by moving a line, or do we need to reserve?
No, there's no reserve. It is a specific general fund line item, in the budget for transfer to school lunch fund, so.
Right, okay. Got it, good. Okay, thank you.
We could reserve for electric buses.
I don't believe,
That would be capital, right?
I'll let
That'd be
you know.
capital.
potentially in capital, but that's usually focused on buildings.
Okay.
So might there be something coming down the pipe from Albany? Sure, but right now, that would be one where I would go to the attorneys rather than try to answer that.
Any other questions? Jim, thank you. With that, would anyone like to move item 7.1?
I'll move it.
Anyone like to second item 7.1?
I'll second. Oh, go ahead, Robin.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. All right, 7.2, the approval of the tax warrant. Is there a question or a comment from any single person, or are there questions and comments? All right,
Actually, this is the one where the burn increases. Large.
Can I?
Yeah, would you?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked the question because Jim and I have been we're actually been trying to figure this out. So it's the same thing that happened in Guilderland those years. So Jim and I are like, how do we, Jim, we had this conversation today, is how do we explain equalization rates in a way that people can really understand it, because burn is going up. So Jim, I'm going to let you do this, but it is something that is on our mind, especially when we meet with the senior citizens and we want to explain it. So
with equalization rates, what happens is the town has their assessment number, whatever that is. Let's call it $100, just to make it simple. The state comes in, the state tax department, and says, no, we really believe the full value of all your properties is $200. So they divide that 100 by the 200, and it comes out 50% equalization. So what happened this year was burn went from a 50% equalization rate to a 43% equalization rate. That was a 14% decline. So equalization rate going down means value goes up. If your value goes up in your town more than the other towns, you're going to get more of the taxes. And that's basically what
And that's nothing that's going to require a reserve, not to bring that topic back up.
No,
Okay.
we actually do have a reserve for taxes in there. It's the allocated fund balance that we approved as part of the budget process, but that's just an offset.
The Guilderland reserve, the reserve we had because of that was because the assessments changed.
That was because the owners were challenging their assessment.
Correct.
Yep.
Okay. And this is different. This is just the change of equalization rates.
Correct, caused by the state
Right,
and
right.
towns. I won't take responsibility for that one.
We can set up a reserve for a tax certiorari case. So when there's that legal case going on, then we know that there's an outcome where we could end up spending like maybe it's $1 million that we're going to have to foot the bill. Since it takes a few years, you can set up a reserve so that way you're planning so it doesn't come right out. So that's what that one was. So just to help clarify that a little.
The entire town of Bern, though, looks to be about 7 to 8% of our total assessment.
Yeah.
It's $7.5 million of total assessment.
Right. Yeah.
But I mean, I lived in Guilderland when it happened. I know what that equalization rate is. Yeah.
But from
Yeah.
the impact to like, if there was a.
Right, it's smaller.
Yeah, it would be, the financial impact to us would be small.
And it's completely out of our control.
Yeah, I mean,
That's-
it's an argument for doing a reval, which
Yep,
I'm sure.
full value assessment.
Bern has
It
not
should
done.
be argument
On a
for the state
countywide
coming in and
basis.
saying everyone has to be at 100% assessment.
Well,
Yeah.
that's the goal.
Continuity.
And the state makes resources available to help
Mhm.
these, the localities do the revals, but if they don't do it, state's not forcing it.
Having all of these various taxing authorities is very complicated. I've talked with people and said, if you just guys went to a countywide full value assessment rate and tax rate, it would be simplified for everybody statewide, but we're caught up in traditions that will probably never go away. I've got this.
Any other thoughts or questions about the tax warrant? All right. Would anyone like to move it? Item 7.2.
I'll move it.
Second,
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And now we are going to continue to have a crossing guard if we vote for this at the elementary school. It seems like it was an effective thing to have. She was elected this past year. Any thoughts or questions just about item 7.3?
What was that $1?
That was a recommended increase by the town.
$1
Per hour.
Yeah,
per hour.
per hour. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm assuming it went well. If you want to continue.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Yeah. No, I wouldn't have put it back on if, I'm sorry. I thought Rachel was saying that. Yeah, it went very well. She actually helps foster biking as well. And she actually spoke to us about there's some kids who want to actually bike up here. So on her own time, because she does the Voorheesville biking, she's working out safe routes for these children, time frames, how to get them up here through Martin Road. So she really is an advocate for our students for health and getting and walking and biking to school. But she's not doing that as part of the school. She's doing that as her own community member. But, I watched her work. She greets all the students. She knows all the students by names and families. And it's a scary place, and as a parent, you want your child there's 30 bikes out there sometimes. And knowing that someone can help safely get those kids to and from school, I mean, that's priceless. So.
I see her out there.
No pressure on the vote.
Yeah. Rain, sleet,
Rain,
snow.
sleet, or snow, she's there with a smile on her face.
Yeah. So with that in mind, would anyone like to move this resolution, the approval of the contract for school cross board? Second,
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. No pressure there. Okay, we noticed that there are school lunch price increases that have to happen. And so, because we're a member of the National School Lunch Program, are there any thoughts or questions about this? There's anyone would like to move it forward?
I'll move it.
Second,
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And we were fortunate to have donations offered. And would anyone like to, are there any thoughts or questions about it first? Other than,
Thank you.
yeah, I keep doing that, but then we don't vote on it. We have to vote on it first. Preemptively thanking. Anyone like to move it?
I'll move it.
Second,
Second.
all in favor? Aye. Thank you. Echo Rob there. 7.6, this is the moving of the budget. I could have. Any thoughts or questions? Anyone like to move it?
I'll move it.
There we go. Second,
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
That, we're gonna move to 8.1, the opportunity for the board to be heard. Anyone have anything to bring up?
I want to punt to Frank to talk about fall sports registration.
Well, thank you, and thanks for the warning. So Mr. Sapiens, our athletic director, was actually going to send out something today regarding it. There is an online system that they're working through the county. Am I correct? Or Section 2, Jessica? I'm sorry to put you on the spot like that. Section 2 is working on an online registration program. He was working on it, and he's trying to fine tune it a little bit to get it out. So the goal was today, but I believe the goal is tomorrow at this point to be able to get out the full registration. So the online system, though, is going to be a little bit different. To kind of change it, instead of people calling the nurse and going through it, you can do it all online, put all your systems in so everything is there. And then after you're done doing it, so if you have another child with another season, all you have to do is just like, oh, yep, they play this fall sport winter season. Oh, they do a spring season. It's a click of the button instead of going through all the processes. But it's something that he's been working on, and they're going to roll that out shortly.
Does one still need to send info over to the nurse after doing this, or this replaces that whole process?
Thank you, Jessica.
Awesome. Good one.
And will the health forms, are they gonna be held by Section 2, like online securely?
No. Yeah. So Jessica actually was the test today. I'm going through it, and in going through the process of time, it took roughly about 15 minutes to do, but we house it. We have all the information since it's all HIPAA stuff, but you know, it's a system that will hopefully make things a lot smoother in our processes.
All right. Progress. Anything else? All right, with that, we have the date to remember, which is,
Sorry.
yes, thank you. The agenda does not have the second opportunity for the public to be heard. Is there anyone in here who would like to come to the podium? Okay, well, thank you for the reminder. Sorry, our agenda is long enough, but not long enough. And so our next meeting scheduled for 7 p.m. preceded hopefully by an audit committee meeting, probably at 6:30, but you never know. So keep an eye on School Messenger and calendar and all that exciting stuff. And at that point, school will have started. So enjoy the rest of August. And with that, anyone like to make a motion to adjourn?
I would.
Anyone like to second? All in favor? Aye. Thank you all for being here. Don't leave till you sign.